Howdy, my friend.
Why am I upside down?
You are sideways to me, my man.
Unbelievable. What the heck is going on?
There you go.
But see, it's in portrait mode. I can't switch it. I don't know how to switch it.
Huh.
Dang
oh, well.
it.
I'm not that concerned.
And why the hell? I've got clouds behind me. I'll change that. That's God. Oh man, it's been a day, brother. Here we go. Man, I could throw old Frank up here.
Oh, lamps.
Go Chelsea. Go Chelsea. All right, I'll close it up. There we go. Oh man.
All right, you ready?
I believe so. How am I good as far as the ratio? I stay right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're fine. We'll figure this out at some point. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Evan and Aaron Show. This is episode 2. I'm Aaron Gordon.
And I'm Evan Casey. And we are very, very glad that you guys joined us last time. I'll let Aaron talk a little bit more about that and our platforms. But I'm just really happy to be back again with you this week, my friend.
Yep. Big thanks to everybody who tuned in, whether that was to listen to us or watch us. We've tried to put this out on as many platforms as we can. Comes out as a YouTube video, an Anchor podcast. Somebody hit me up. I think they get their podcast through somebody else, so it must disseminate. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We should probably get on more platforms, I'm sure of it, and I'll find a teenager who can tell me about it.
There you go. I think, honestly, it should be a Gordon Casey ticket in, 2024 maybe. I'd be glad to be VP. I would be glad to be VP and just travel around the world and look pretty. And,
let's see if we get the views to warrant that. So, without further ado, tell me what's been on your mind this week.
My friend, first of all, let me just say that everybody who is dealing with the coronavirus personally, our hearts go out to you. Please stay healthy, stay safe. Make sure that you are doing all the things you're supposed to do. And reading this week, Aaron, I came across an article that just was really astounding to me. In Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, they have tried to develop what's called herd immunity. And we've heard that phrase throughout the news, and people talking about it. And I just really got fascinated by this whole concept. I'm not a virologist. I am not a doctor. And nor do I play one on TV. So, but the things that I'm reading, the research that's out there that I read indicates that this is not the bug to experiment with natural herd immunity. And here's why. For those of you out there who don't know, herd immunity is the concept that, where so many people in a community become immune to an infectious disease because they've gained some type of immunity through exposure to the virus. And it can happen in two ways. Many people can contract the disease in time and build up an immune response to it, or they're vaccinated against the disease. Right now in Sweden, they are trying the natural way of doing things. They didn't shut anything down. They just kind of let everybody roam and do their thing. And what they're finding now is kind of twofold. They're expecting, and I use the word expecting very, very purposefully because we still don't know very much about this virus. They're expecting to reach herd immunity in a month to a month and a half there. And that sounds great. That sounds wonderful if we knew everything about the virus. And this is what the article was saying in retrospect to that. The casualty level that Sweden has experienced is double to the their neighboring countries. And the saddest part about that is that 50% of the deaths in Sweden have occurred in nursing homes. So it just solidifies the fact that, those of us who are most vulnerable to this disease, technically most vulnerable to this disease, the elderly, those who have pre-existing conditions, Because of this experiment, we're really starting to question, and Sweden is starting to question themselves about actually going this route to get this disease taken care of, which brought me to other research that I read that was happening here in the United States. We hear a lot of things, and I'll probably spend some time next week, I think, Aaron, talking about the antibodies testing and things like that. And I totally get it. I totally get the fact that we just want to know. It's part of the human spirit to know, or to want to know, hey, did I have this thing? Do I have this thing? And if I did or do have this thing, do I have the antibodies to make sure I don't get this thing? I get that because I was there. And I'll explain next week. But what we're doing is we're focusing on this herd immunity type thing way too fast. And this is not my opinion, but it's opinion based on science and research in medicine, that if we continue down this path of opening up our states too fast and expecting us to develop herd immunity, we are flat out wrong, and we are setting ourselves up for disaster. Here are a few stats that I ran across while I was looking at things. For some viruses, herd immunity goes into effect at about 40%. So 40% of the population has to be exposed and have the antibodies for there to be herd immunity. What most doctors and medical researchers are saying right now is that for COVID-19, there needs to be at least 80 to 95% herd immunity for there to be herd immunity. What this means is it means about 19 out of every 20 people in the United States has to have the vaccination for COVID-19 for it to be a secure herd immunity situation. We're not talking natural exposure here. We're talking vaccination. And also the factor that we forget about this is that, Aaron, you are a strapping young man, my friend, and you play soccer, as evidence behind you. I did not. I chose to drink a lot, which, that's why we love each other. But I could be a 22-year-old marathoner, and within 3 days of contracting this virus, I could be on a ventilator. I could be an 82-year-old smoker working in coal mines all my life and be asymptomatic. This virus is so unpredictable. This is why herd immunity with this virus will not work. There isn't a vaccination that has been developed, and there probably won't be until March of 2021 is what most medical journals are saying. The research is ongoing, and so we learn something new about this bug every single day. Scientists don't know yet if you can contract SARS-CoV-2 and develop COVID-19 more than once. There are a few documented cases to where people who had COVID-19 got better and then recontracted the disease again. And so this disease has the ability to mutate into a different form, but is still stemming from the coronavirus that gives us COVID-19. And we're putting at risk in really playing Russian roulette at best with our most vulnerable members in society, man. I mean, those people who have respiratory issues. We just saw the Detroit bus driver who, I don't know if you had a chance to see him when he was laying in his hospital bed, just pleading to us, telling it, my lungs feel like glass and then I have to get up and I have to keep moving. He just died today. And so we see people, and we talked about this last week, we see people, and especially people of color, who have these underlying issues. Those underlying issues are exacerbated by this. So if we open up too soon and we expect herd immunity to take place, we are going to make a dire mistake in thinking that's going to happen without the death toll skyrocketing, man. And so, in the future, if you're vaccinated and we build immunity that way, that's the way to go with this virus. But the bottom line is herd immunity isn't the answer to stopping the spread of COVID-19. The only opportunity to do that is with a vaccine. And if we want to do it naturally, we are putting at risk everybody from age 9 to 90. This bug is non-discriminatory. it will act however it wants to act, man. And so that's what's been on my mind. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, brother, but please go ahead, comment.
Yeah, I think I'd come across a headline talking about how Sweden had a different approach to things maybe a week or so ago, and skimmed it. Didn't really dive deep into it. So good on you for doing it. And I am sure the second a few of our science field friends see and hear this are going to gladly provide corrections and updates to anything that we have to say. And for the record, I welcome that. Unlike some other people, I'd rather listen to the experts than to just kind of make opinions out of whole cloth. I get where you're coming from, and I definitely think to hear that seems like it was an too early attempt for trying to implement that kind of herd immunity for something. And again, different sized countries are going to have different approaches. Sweden has, a pretty strong credibility with people and government relationships, so they don't have a reason to distrust their government and the healthcare system. So I'm sure they went into this pretty willingly. And I would say that there's not going to be one solution to this. We're going to have to attack this on multiple levels. We're going to have to figure out, what are percentage-wise reasonably safe businesses and venues to open up for people, because there will be, an issue with the economy. And now I'm putting lives over the economy, but I'm not going to ignore the economy entirely. And I get where people coming from. To that, I'd kind of like to pivot a little bit, and I don't want to give too much notoriety here too. These protests that are going on right now, because I think it comes from a little bit of a similar mindset of, really, apparently the protests are about wanting to open the economy. I'll just say, everyone could do a little research and realize these are not grassroots movements going on here. The dictionary definition of astroturfing and activist groups that already exist, wanting to make money off of it. But I don't doubt that there are plenty of people who are legitimately upset, want to get back to work, and I sympathize with that. What I don't like seeing is people at highest levels, they should be saying, we hear you, we sympathize with what you're saying, and we are coming up with a plan. But these protests are the exact worst possible way of going about this. We know how this spreads, and we've got people, groups of maybe even just a few hundred. I don't think we're seeing, massive levels of protest the way it seems to be getting portrayed. And we know that the vast majority of citizens are much more in support of a gradual reopening of the economy rather than just rushing back in. But it does speak to the fear and anxiety that we've got going on right now. Hopefully, people in the right places. I will give credit where due. I think Eric Holcomb has done a pretty good job with Indiana. Indiana has been hard hit in some areas. Marion County and Hamilton County especially have gotten some hits. But we don't have the same burdens with our hospitals. We've got ICU beds, we've got ventilators, and if people are worse off, we should probably be sharing them as needed. But we were fairly prepared for this, and I'd like to think that he's doing a similar job of, okay, what are the types of business that legitimately can be opened up again? What are truly essential necessities for Americans? Not sure tattoo parlors and massage parlors qualify for that. Not really even sure how you social distance while getting a tattoo or a massage. But we're going to have to figure out how to get farmers markets back open. We're going to have to come up with plans for how people can shop at groceries and big box stores, things of that nature. I've heard such things as you'll get your temperature taken as you walk through the door. I definitely think there should be, a mandate about masks, whether or not you expect the general public to procure those on their own, or you're going to be handing out the most basic of paper masks, entering the store. But those are the types of things, you know, that we have to think about. How are restaurants going to open back up? All right, well, you're probably going to need to remove at least 1/3 of your tables. And, you know, that's still an impact. Yes, the business gets to open back up, but that's still a ding. So there's a lot of things that we need to discuss and work out, and people not taking this seriously, people meeting out in public, people propagating some really absurd conspiracy theories. And to that, I'll say I've heard them from both sides. I'm not a big both sides with
absolutely.
But I've seen a couple things, and again, I think it's more out of just a bit of panic and fear. As you said earlier, we've never seen anything like this, you know. And when an expert says this is my best guess, but we don't quite know yet, listen to them than somebody else who is speaking with their absolute authority on something on a hunch, because that's not how you approach this. And as you said, this will get a lot of people killed, a lot of people sick. Sadly, it may be the only way for some people to take it seriously, but I don't want that. I'm not wishing that on anybody, but just the history of you know, human relationship with viruses and epidemics and how we get sick. We know that this is, you know, something we've never dealt with before. And I'm certain that at some point in time, we will have a breakthrough. There are great people doing great research. We're going to find a way to treat this. Going to find a vaccine, may find a cure. Who knows? But that's the process that you want to be moving through. And I know people are working on that right now. And I'm sorry, but a human life is worth more than the economy right now. And
I agree.
We should be focusing on finding the middle ground where those two things intersect, how we can be safe and save our economy.
Well, you know what, Aaron, I think that we have found a middle ground, my friend. I think that the middle ground is the time for our halftime. Well, it may not be halftime show. This may be like almost like 3/4 time because we both have kind of talked about some things, but I do have some things I want to say to you before we take this shot, my friend. I know I've known you for several years now, and I know your heart, and I know the fact that you know who I am. Guys, those of you who are out there who, you know, who have lost your livelihood, who have lost your jobs, we first of all consider you heroes, because you're absorbing way more than, personally, it's what I think, you're absorbing way more than what you should. I feel that we as a country should do more for you, and we love you, and we're thinking about you. And you know what? Tonight, I'm going to let Aaron do his thing, talk about, you know, our favorite watering hole. But tonight, I'm dedicating the shot to you guys. So
yeah, for sure, we'll take the shot.
Yep.
And as we said last week, if y'all know us, you know where we hang out. Turns out there are 3 locations. They all have some of the best wings in town.
The Buffalo Dip. Buffalo Dip.
The Buffalo Dip is baller. Any of their pizzas, and they're also just some of the coolest folks working in bars in Indy. And shout out to everybody who's keeping restaurants and bars going with their takeout service, carry out service and stuff right now. Good on you.
Absolutely.
Where are we heading next, Evan?
Well, I think I want to go ahead and do, I want to do the Hey Aaron spot. The Hey Aaron spot, I know it had a different name last week, but I kind of like, Hey Aaron, just to get your thoughts on something. I have a news article, and this, for those of you who may just be tuning in, this spot is where I have a news article. It may be funny, it may be sentimental, it may be whatever, but I read this article, and we get Aaron's response to this article. So, my friend, here we go. This article is actually out of, I think last week's was out of California too. Y'all got, man.
No, last week's was
oh no, that was East Coast. It was East Coast.
Something in Maryland, I recall.
Maryland, yes, you're right. You're right. So
I want to say Wynnewood, but that's Oklahoma and Tiger King.
Yeah, there you go. You can't do that. I will find something related to coronavirus and Tiger King. I promise I will do that. But for this week, we are in Merced, California,
All
And
right.
the article goes like this. In the North Valley, 100-year-old letter is providing some hope for the future when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. Jill Cunningham is the Associate Vice President of External Relations at Merced College. Her family recently came across a letter when one of her relatives attended LeGrand High School. It's dated January 30th, 1920, and it describes the school board's decision to cancel classes due to the influenza pandemic. The letter explains that teachers will be providing correspondence work, which is similar to what's now called remote learning. It also mentions a version of social distancing, with students only being allowed to visit their teacher one at a time. The quote says, "It was so fascinating to read this because this is my high school," Cunningham said. "I'm an alumna of LeGrand High School, and these are my relatives. And to see that we've been through it, the world has been done this before," which I'm not sure the editing there. "The world has taken drastic measures before, and we've come through it, and perhaps come through it with being better people." Cunningham's family has been in LeGrand for 4 generations. She says the letter feels as though history is repeating itself, but she hopes it provides a sense of reassurance about our ability to overcome challenging times. There you go, Aaron. What do you think about that?
Well, she's actually absolutely right. And, history does have a way of repeating itself. But like I said last week, I have a great faith in humanity when it figures out how to pull itself together. And I think we've done it a few times. We have buckled down and done the right things. It's no surprise to learn about, a form of social distancing at the time, that there was a priority made for how students could continue to learn during that time. If you've done much research on the influenza pandemic at that time, it was massive. I can't speak with any certainty, but I think it's probably the last time. Well, no, I guess we had the Spanish flu in 1918. Mm-hmm. But when we take something seriously and we band together to deal with it, we come through, and we come through better people for having done it. And hopefully whoever's next will take this seriously. We've been saying that we've been on the verge of a pandemic, some sort of flu pandemic globally, for probably 2 decades now. I can remember it back as early as 2000. Mm-hmm. I know Bill Gates has spoken about it. George Bush gave a speech to the NIH about it. Barack mm-hmm. Obama gave a speech about it. It was a matter of when, not if, that this was going to happen. But to look at another time period in history, we got on top of the Spanish flu in 1918, and someone will correct me if I'm getting my exact details wrong here, but I'm pretty sure as they began to get better, Philadelphia threw a huge parade saying, "Yay, we're past it." Mm-hmm. And then they ended up having more deaths in the second wave from it. So I think in some ways we've come full circle here, and we're basically saying we can do great things. And this letter is a source of inspiration. That's awesome. And maybe in 100 years, somebody will dig up an old YouTube video of us telling people to to keep a stiff upper lip. But we can get through this. We've just got to be smart. We've got to be patient. And I know that's tough. For some people, people who it's hitting the toughest were already in trouble. We're already living paycheck to paycheck. Probably did not have the greatest health insurance, or if any, health insurance through their employer. Need childcare, need some of the government services to get through. And it's our duty, as this country, as a country that claims this history of greatness, to do something about it. And I think we will. I think we'll ultimately pull together and get this right. We just got to weather this storm for a little bit longer. I hate speaking in platitudes like that, but there's not a lot of other words for it. We've got to figure out how to pull together through this, because we can be.
Right. I mean, Aaron, being a historian, I love this time period, because you think 1918 to 1941, you had 23, 24, 25-year-old kids who, had lived through the Spanish flu, the pandemic, who then were called, to go and fight the biggest war that had been fought to that point in the world. And what you got out of that was a generation that we call now the greatest generation. We can come through this, and we can pull together, and we will. I mean, that's just who we are. I mean, I'm not trying to, do the rah, 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 thing about being American and patriot, but that's just who we are as Americans. I mean, we do that. But as we open our eyes and as we see more globally, we see other people doing that too. And I think what this will do is this will pull us together, hopefully, as an entire world, as an entire planet, and say, you know what, it is the human spirit, not just the American spirit, that got us through this. And I think it'll pull us together in a way that if we allow it to, will produce such great fruit for everyone. And I love this story, and I read it and I immediately thought, man, I want to hear what Aaron says about this. So that was cool, man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I think that on the other side of this, there's probably going to be some fantastic books, some fantastic movies, some fantastic music that comes out of this, that comes out of the plight, the anxiety, the hope, as it always does, from all over the world. And we will hopefully look back on this time and think, man, all we really had to do was sit on the couch and watch the craziest documentary about tigers you've ever seen in your entire life. And
it's all Carol Baskin's fault,
food.
you know that, right? I mean, it's all Carol Baskin's fault, man.
As you said, our grandparents, rose up to defeat at that point, the world's, foremost enemy. Here's somebody who wants to put the world under his boot. And that generation said, okay, we'll just take care of this.
Yep.
And that took a lot of sacrifice, and they didn't think twice about it. So I think we've got the gumption in us, if you will.
I love that word.
To sit on our couches, to endure this. If people need help, hey, ask for help. There's the small business loans and things like that. It's not the greatest program, but it's some program. There's the checks. Right. It's not anywhere near enough, but it's something.
Right.
But if you need help, if you want food, if you need somebody to talk to in this time, hit us up.
Yep.
We're so easy to find on all of these platforms. It's so easy to interact with us. We don't want anyone to suffer. It's playing politics right now is crass. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm calling some things as I see them, but I want us all to get through this. I don't want to see more people are going to get sick. So let's do our part to make that number as small as we possibly can.
That's why I love you, brother. I mean, because I am such a respecter of the human spirit. There's nothing that I believe a human being can go through that can break them as long as they have at least one other human being with them. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are probably feeling like, they're the only person in the world. And if I know Aaron's heart, which I believe I do, it's very much along the same lines as mine, is that, I want to say that you're not alone, guys. You're not. And just because we're drinking alone doesn't mean that we are alone.
We're drinking alone together, my friend, and
we're drinking alone together.
We're drinking alone together with all of you out there. So I think it's time to sign off.
It is
another great chat, just like it always is in the pub. Everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, there should be a big bright red subscribe button over this video now, or tell me that I screwed up and it's not there. Hit the bell for whatever that means. I think that means you get notifications. Subscribe to us. If you're listening on Anchor through Evan, subscribe to that. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You will get far too much information from me that literally has nothing to do with this show. I can guarantee it. You'll laugh. You'll get mad. Hopefully, we all become closer because of this. So appreciate you all out there. Evan, love you, buddy.
Sláinte. Love you, my friend. Sláinte.